MapKit for SwiftUI. Man, when they announced this at WW23, I was pumped. And it's not that I use maps all the time in my apps, it's just that when I do need it, it's quite a chore to add a UIKit map to my SwiftUI project. Plus, the code is kind of complex to explain it simply to a beginner who wants to use maps in their project. Now, all of that has been solved. Let me show you. In this SwiftUI MapKit Basics tutorial, you're going to learn how to add a map to your SwiftUI project, how to add markers to your map and how to customize them, how to add annotations to your map. They're kind of like markers, but they let you add a custom view instead. I'll also show you how to change the region that the map shows, and finally, how to change the style of the map. Now for reference, I learned all of this stuff from this WWDC23 video, link in the description. So SwiftUI maps are only available on Xcode 15 beta and later. So depending on when you're watching this, if Xcode 15 has officially come out, or maybe it's Xcode 17 now, things may change. Okay, under iOS, let's choose app and let's call this MapKit demo. Interface is SwiftUI, language is Swift. Click on next. Let's save this on the desktop. Let's make this window a little bigger. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is import MapKit at the top. Next, we are going to replace the entire VStack with a SwiftUI map component. And it's literally as simple as that to add a map to your SwiftUI project. This used to take ages with the UIKit map. Okay, step 2, we're going to add a marker to this map. And that is very simple as well. But first, let me declare a point of interest. So I am going to take this lat long of the CN tower, and we're going to use that. We need a CL location coordinate 2D. And we're going to pass in the lat and the long. All right. So that's our tower. And in order to add this to the map, you open up the content builder for the map. This is where you can add content. Just open up a pair of curly brackets in here, and you're going to be able to add content. Okay, so we're going to add a marker component, and it takes in a title key and a coordinate. So let's call this CN tower, and for coordinate, we're just going to pass in tower. So you can see that right away, the camera region goes automatically to the markers. If I had multiple markers, it would frame the map so that all of the markers are visible, and it does that automatically. So here in the map already, if I hold down Control on my keyboard, or Option rather, and I can sort of navigate around. You can see all these things. Okay, let's add a couple of markers. So we're probably going to zoom ahead for this part because it's going to be a little bit tedious. Okay, so now I have a few more points of interest. Let's add these to our map as well. Okay, so we've got the art gallery of Ontario, and we've also got, this is the museum. The Royal Ontario Museum, ROM. Now you can see it frames the map, it zooms out and it frames it so that all of my markers are visible automatically. Now I want to show you how to customize these markers. So this marker, you can actually pass in a couple of different things instead of just this pin. So this is the CN tower, that's this one down here. And you can pass in an image. If you have one, you just add it into your asset library and you can display that instead of this little pin icon. But you can also add an SF symbol, which is what I'm going to do here. So I can search for, unfortunately there's no tower, but there is a building. So I'm going to use that. All right, and you can see that change into a building there in that corner. The other thing you can do is you can use a monogram, which takes up to 3 letters. So now I can display AGO instead if I wanted to. So those are a couple of options. You can also change the color. So for the tower, let's say I want this to be blue. For the art gallery, I want that to be red. And then for the museum, let's give it a system image. Let's use this one. That kind of looks like a museum, right? Put it right there. And then tint this one perhaps should be orange. All right, so that's how easily you can customize these markers. But if you wanted to completely change this little bubble and you wanted to put your own icon there, you can as well. You can use what's called an annotation instead of a marker, and it actually looks really, really similar. So let's say, for example, for the art gallery, I don't want to display the AGO. I can choose annotation instead, and it accepts the title, the coordinate, and content. And in this content, you can then put your own view that you want to use. So let's call this art gallery. Coordinate is AGO, and the content is anything we'd like. So why don't we use something like this. And then we'll also add some padding to that. And we'll add a background color to red. So it could be something like that. That gives you an idea. You can put in your own shapes, you can put in whatever you want as a view. So what if we wanted to control what area the map shows? By default, the camera position is automatic, so it frames all of your markers and annotations in view. However, there is a way for you to control that camera position to, let's say, single out a particular location. So the way you control that is by specifying this position parameter, and it is a binding to a map camera position. Right? So let me show you how that works. We're going to add a state property. Let's call this camera, and it's going to be map camera position. And we're going to set it to a default value of automatic, which is actually what is happening behind the scenes right now. Create a position that frames the map's content, right? And what we can do later is, for example, when the user taps on a button, we can set this camera position to something that we want, and that will then change where the map is framing. So let's pass this property into our map component through this position parameter, and it's got to be a binding. Oops, there we go. Camera. And then let's add some buttons. So this is something really cool that I learned from that WWDC video, and it is called a safe area inset. So you can overlay some controls on top of the map, and it's ensured that nothing will cover it. So it shows content above or below the modified view. So we're going to put it along the bottom edge, and in content, I can choose what to show. So I'm going to put an H stack here, and I'm going to put a button that says, let's see here, how about we center on okay, so you see the button down there, but it's kind of hard to read, so then you can put a background on this, and you can use a thin material to have a slightly opaque background, but notice that it only takes up the width of the button. So what you can do is add a spacer to the left and right of the button, and you can also add some padding at the top so it's not so close to the text. So that creates a little more space right there. And then when this button is tapped on, what we want to do is just set the camera position. So we can set the camera equals, there are a couple of things you can set this to. One of them, for example, you can center it around an MK map item if you have a reference to a particular marker or map item, sorry. You can center it around a rect or a region or user's location even. So if you want the map to track a user's location as the user is, let's say, driving or biking or something like that, you can use that. And then region is what we're going to use here. And then we're going to specify an MK coordinate region. And we are going to center it around the tower and specify a number of meters as the area to show. So let me space this out a little bit so it's a little easier to see and read these. All right, so right here, it's still automatic camera positioning, but when I tap on the tower, it's then going to change the camera to show the CN tower with the specified number of meters here. So I can very easily add another button here. Let's just copy and paste this. And this is going to be, let's do the ROM for this one. All right, so CN Tower, ROM. This is kind of a cool looking building actually. And the last thing I want to show you guys is how easily you can change the style of the map. So let us collapse that and collapse that. And then we are simply going to add a map style modifier. And you can choose, the standard is what we're looking at right now. And then you have imagery using satellite imagery or hybrid, where you can read that. It has the road names and information layers on top. So let's take a look at imagery because that looks really, really different. So we can zoom in and we can take a look at this imagery here. Or let's go to the ROM. Yeah, that's how that building looks like. So if you have time, definitely check out that dub23 video that I linked to in the description. That's where I learned all of this. And that video actually covers a lot more, such as about how to add routes and user locations and highlight different things on the map. It's a really informative video. So have you ever tried to add a UIKit map to your SwiftUI project using UIView Representable? If you have, you'll know what I mean when I say it's quite complex to do, and it took me a while to grasp what was going on. And now we have this beautiful SwiftUI syntax to work with maps. It is awesome. So what is your favorite part about SwiftUI MapKit? Let me know by leaving a comment below. And if you are new to app development, check out our 3-hour beginner masterclass on SwiftUI, where you'll build your first app, no experience required. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.